Heard Sunday evenings at 6.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And as we await to see what I reported Monday.
Yeah, you had this scoop.
Turned into legislative form in Illinois because Governor Spalding here wants to compete with Governors Northam and Cuomo for the most pro-infanticide governor in America. The understanding is legislation will be coming that would repeal parental notification for minors. And by the way, there's a judicial bypass in that parental notification stricture at present. So just in terms of what if you have bad parents, you can go to a judge. Repeal the late-term abortion ban, partial birth abortion ban. Allow for non-doctors to perform abortions. And also provide more forced funding through insurance company mandates for coverage. So we'll see. Here's what we don't have to see. We know. Governor Rauner's abortions. Governor Rauner funded abortions. 1,561 public-funded abortions for the first 6 months of 2018 after he signed House Bill 40. Public funding of abortion on demand all 9 months. 1,561 first 6 months of 2018. What was it the first 6 months of 2017 before that legislation was signed in terms of public policy impacting people's lives or their lack of having one? 85. 1,561 versus 85. That's the difference that legislation made, and that's just in the first 6 months of year one. Big difference. Youngest person to get an abortion? 12.
Ooh.
Yeah. Welcome to the gruesome reality on the ground. And this is why we talked to Abby Johnson yesterday in her new movie coming out about her autobiography, Unplanned, at the end of March. Planned Parenthood clinic director to pro-life advocate. Here's another example of that. Dr. Anthony Levatino, who's an OBGYN and former abortionist. He sat down for an interview with Live Action's Lila Rose, pro-life organization. He talked about and addressed the arguments being made by the pro-infanticide left, by the Northams and the Cuomos and the Pritzkers and the Democrat ghouls in this state. You will hear these arguments. High-risk pregnancies, protecting women's health, protecting women's life. That's why you need to open up and legalize late-term abortions, right?
We hear all the time how abortion, including especially late-term abortion, is necessary to save women's lives. Nothing could be further from the truth. I spent 9 years working at a tertiary medical center. I mean, there are only certain hospitals in the country that are designated to take care of the really, really high-risk pregnancies. You don't want to duplicate the effort. It's expensive. So these hospitals get referrals from the surrounding area. And Albany Medical Center in Albany, New York, where I worked, was one of them. I was faculty at the hospital for 9 years. And I saw hundreds of cases of really severe pregnancy complications, cancers, heart disease, intractable diabetes out of control, toxemia of pregnancy out of control. And I saved, in those 9 years, I saved hundreds of women from life-threatening pregnancies. And I did that by delivering them, by ending their pregnancy by delivery, either induction of labor or cesarean section.
Delivering the baby.
Delivering the baby. And I always tell people, in all of those years, the number of babies that I was obligated to deliberately kill in the process was zero. None.
He goes on to explain what actually happens when a woman's life is in jeopardy late in her term.
The key point about late-term abortion that so many people miss is that it takes days to prepare the cervix. This is not a natural situation by any stretch. If you're going to dilate a cervix sufficiently, that starts off essentially as a pinpoint, large enough to dismember or tear apart a baby this big, that cervix has to be dilated, and that can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. And especially when you're talking about later term pregnancies. Most life-threatening situations, the vast, vast majority of life-threatening situations in pregnancy are not going to arise until 24, 25, 26 weeks of pregnancy and higher. And when you're talking about that, you're talking about abortion procedures that take 2 and 3 days to prepare the cervix. And I'll give you a classic example. This is a real case. A lady came to the hospital at 27 weeks of pregnancy with severe toxemia. Her blood pressure, you know, a normal blood pressure is about 120 over 80. Her blood pressure was 220 over 160. Okay, this lady would literally be minutes or hours away from a stroke. What do you do in a situation like that? We stabilized her, brought her back, did a cesarean section, had her delivered within an hour of arriving at the hospital. She and her baby did just fine.
Amazing.
Now, let's say we wanted to use abortion to save her life, okay? If with that kind of blood pressure and that kind of problem, if we waited 2 to 3 days to get her cervix prepared, she would never make it. She would have been dead. And that's a perfect example. You never need late-term abortion to save a woman's life. If necessary, you accomplish the delivery. Now, did every one of those children make it because they were preterm? No. But they all had a chance, and most of them did make it.
The party of science, the left, the pro-infanticide left. There's the reality on the ground. The other reality on the ground in Illinois is that the pro-life side is not giving up because of what Ronner and Surrender Republicans have done, because of the political landscape dominated by pro-infanticide Democrats. Aid for Women, which is a Catholic life-affirming pregnancy center to which I'm affiliated on the advisory board, is opening up crisis pregnancy centers to serve women and children in the metro area, just as the political class's support for HB 40 that Ronner signed has allowed Planned Parenthood to open up new clinics, new abortion mills in Illinois, even as they are closing them in many parts of the rest of the country. And for more on the work of Aid for Women, what's happening locally, we're pleased to be joined by Pastor Ceasar LeFlore, who is also the founder of the Southland Coalition for Life. Caesar, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning.
Morning. And so against this very difficult landscape and what additional difficulties could be in the offing, tell us what Aid for Women is doing and how people can to intercede with Aid for Women in advance of life in Chicago Metro.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, unfortunately, Illinois is surging ahead in this race to the bottom when it comes down to our total disrespect for the sanctity of human life. And as you mentioned, as other states, we're seeing a reduction in abortion providers. Illinois, because of the political climate here, because of our liberal policies and a governor that failed us by signing legislation that makes abortion more accessible. Organizations like Planned Parenthood have targeted Illinois, as they did when they opened up the center in Flossmoor, Illinois, under the cover of darkness almost. And they have plans for opening up 4 more of the centers, we understand, in Illinois, because Illinois now has become a state that's becoming an oasis, if you will, in the Midwest for abortion. And so we didn't want to just sit by and just go along with that. We just wanted to respond to this darkness by opening up a light in our area in Flossmoor. When we found out about Planned Parenthood, when they opened up on Martin Luther King Day in Flossmoor, a group of us got together and we prayed and we decided that we wanted to have a response. And so we formulated the Southland Coalition for Life. And we came together, Dan, for these purposes, to provide resources that would support, love, and empower women to make life-affirming decisions, to not just go along with the prevailing opinion about life is not sacred, but to give them opportunities to be supported so that they can make a decision for life. And that's why we are working with Aid for Women to open up the Flossmoor Women's Pregnancy Aid Center And people can find out more how to support us because we really need your support. God did something miraculous, but in a very short period of time, He made the resources available to us through very loving and caring people to open up our center, which is opening up this month. But we are looking for sustainability. We want to be there for the long haul so that these women can have access to this vitally needed support in that area. So we're encouraging your listeners to go to helpaidforwomen.org, helpaidforwomen.org, so they can find out how to support this ongoing work. Our Pregnancy Help Center is going to be right in the area where the Planned Parenthood is because we want to be present with light where darkness is. And we understand that the darkness cannot overcome light. We also wanted to provide educational opportunities for the people in our community so that they can be informed about things about abortion that they might not know. For instance, abortion's disproportionate effect on African Americans. African Americans, women only represent 6% of the population, but have almost 30 to 40% of the abortions, and that's on purpose because Planned Parenthood and organizations like that place their centers deliberately in Black and brown areas.
And so Ceasar, not to interrupt, but that's
yes,
what they did, and that's what they did by citing that facility in Flossmoor, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's very strategic, and they knew the areas they would be drawing from, not only in Illinois, but also in Indiana. And they do that as a matter of strategy. Roseland, Inglewood, and other places where minority groups are. We did some studies years ago that said almost 80% of their facilities are within walking distance of Black communities. And so this is what they did consistent with that in Flossmoor. So we wanted to educate the public about that. And also we wanted to build a network of prayer intercessors to be able to pray for a spiritual awakening in our nation that would turn our hearts back to the sanctity of life. And so the Southland Coalition is a grassroots organization, a very diverse organization, Blacks, whites, browns, and other people that were concerned about life. And we came together, and in a very short period of time, God has allowed us to be able to be at this point where we're about to open up our own Women's Pregnancy Aid Center.
Now, Pastor, I know your mission is to empower women to choose life. How do you find or go about reaching out to the women who are pregnant?
Well, in several ways. First of all, the Internet is going to be a great help to us in that because women are looking for answers. They're looking for solutions. So we do want to be very present on the Internet and promoting it, but also through other vehicles, like talking on your radio program this morning. Women need to know that there are other options. And so we're going to use all of the resources available to us through the media and through our emails and Internet, any way that we can get the word out. Billboards, word of mouth, we want women to know that there are different options.
And it's interesting, too, just noting that you're opening, Aid for Women is opening this pregnancy center in Flossmoor because, as I understand it, the money was raised locally. And so there was enough money raised locally. I mean, Flossmoor used to be a wealthy community. Some people might remember it as such. But now it's decidedly a middle-income community, and some places at best. And so to have money raised sufficient to open up this pregnancy center locally has to be a point of encouragement.
Absolutely, it is. You know, there were so many people, individual donors, and other groups that showed up and they gave, and it's almost miraculous that we're able to open up this short of time. But once again, our concern is sustainability because we want to be there for the long term, which is why we are highly encouraging people to support us in those two ways: to pray for us, and then definitely go to helpaidforwomen.org and become a regular supporter because this is what it's going to take. It's going to take people with a heart to be not only involved and active, but to support the work that needs to go forward. We know that we can't compete with the government, and we know how Planned Parenthood and others, how they're funded, but we need people to rise up at this opportunity and support us in this effort.
And just talk a little bit about the work that you've done. I mean, you've been involved in the cause of life for a long time. For those of you who don't know, for those that are listening to us who don't know Pastor LeFlore, in the Black community specifically, but in Chicagoland generally. Just talk about where you think this is, this issue and the fight for preserving the dignity of human life from conception to natural death.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan, for this opportunity. I tell people all the time, I didn't choose to be active in the abortion issue. God used this issue to choose me. And once He awakened my heart about it, I really became alarmed when I found out the truth about what was happening, and especially when I found out what was happening in the Black community. So I was working with a pastor, Hiram Crawford Sr., who
Sure.
I'm sure you know,
Yeah.
who was a pioneer in the black community in trying to awaken the black community about what was targeted towards us. I became involved with the African American Family Association, and not long after that, I discovered the Life Education and Resource Network, which is a national organization of black pro-life, pro-family workers. And so I have been working to try to educate, to mobilize the black church to rise up against this issue of abortion, because I'm trying to show them that this is a spiritual issue, and it's something that the black church is really going to have to awaken to, because black people are the target of abortion, and I believe that the black church can be the answer to it. Because I've often said that if the black church would awaken and rise up and lift up our voice against abortion, then I think this nation would pay attention, just as Martin Luther King did in doing the civil rights movement. I believe that this is our opportunity now to do that, and I think it's necessary. So that's where I have been focusing my energies for the last several years, is trying to reach the black community and especially the black church, to inform them and to inspire them to take a different position, because we know just because abortion is justified in the eyes of the law does not mean that it's justified in the eyes of God. And it is wicked and it is evil. It is the evil of our day, just as slavery was an evil in our past. And this is our critical moment. And that's why I'm so excited about what God is doing through people of faith, even through the Southland Coalition for Life, to inspire us to not just sit back and curse the darkness, but to, through him, turn on the light. And that's what centers like the Aid for Women Center in Flossmoor is going to be. It's going to be a light in the midst of darkness. And that's where my energies go.
We don't get courage from the political class, either party in this state, but we do have people like Pastor Ceasar LeFlore who are courageous day in and day out in advance of issues of concern and dignity like the life issue, and we should be thankful for it. Helpaidforwomen.org, helpaidforwomen.org if you want to support the cause, or even specifically their new pregnancy care center in Flossmoor that Pastor LeFlore is talking about. Pastor LeFlore, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
And he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.